they sent out that many unvetted loans, bounce back loans. Directors have took the money out, extended the house, gone on holidays, bought a boat or whatever, built a man cave. It is, and I think COVID's it's made the problems a lot worse for businesses.
Okay, welcome to the Director First podcast. You are with me, Chris Worden, and today I'm inviting one of my colleagues and friends along, John Boardman. John has been an accountant for many years, and he's going to hopefully share some pearls of wisdom that I can learn from and you guys can learn from. So, John, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
Top man. Listen, before we start, John, tell us a little bit about you, because you know I've heard your story before, but for those that are tuning in, where did it start? What happened, and what do you do now?
Okay, been an accountant for a long time. I university at 3 years, for 3 years in the late 70s, early 80s. Started with a small accountancy practice in Manchester. Did my 3 years articles with them, part qualified, but wasn't that keen on being an accountant at the time. So I got out and went actually working in initially as a builder's merchants, again in administration, doing accounts, but in industrial environment. And I stayed in that environment for a long time, nearly 20 years, 15 years. Moved on from the builder's merchants, spent 10 years with a bedding furniture company, rose through the ranks there up to finance director. I was on the sort of acquisition team because it was a part of a group that was buying a lot of smaller companies that were in trouble. So I was on the sort of a team that went in there. You know, if it was based in Scotland or South or whatever, we went up there and we stopped there for a few months to sort of help them through, get them compliant with our systems and whatever. And then I think it was mid to late 90s, an opportunity came up where they acquired a company in Leeds. And I got the chance of really breaking away. The company I was working for was shutting it down. So I took the opportunity to go with the existing managing director and set up on our own. Operated in furniture, be about 7 or 8 years at the time. A few mishaps with really the type of customers we were dealing with, and I decided to sort of get out of that profession. Would it be Millennium 2000? Strangely, I bought an hotel with my wife, run that for 12 months, and from there on, I went back into the accountancy profession as a professional accountant.
So you've done a fair bit then, haven't you?
I have, yeah. There's a lot in between as well, but yeah, varied.
But well, I mean, we come into each other's paths, and you know, I through a mutual acquaintance. So I appreciate you know all the assistance you've given us this year, and
yes.
Yeah, it's just handy to have decent advisors around you, and that's one thing for you know small business owners need to take heed of, is they need to be able to speak to people who can assist them with the problems. And it's, you know, your accountant is not the enemy, is it? That because I know a lot of people, it's they're frightened to death to talk to an accountant. That's their accountant, you know.
Yeah. Well, I've never advised, never advertised at all. I've built a practice up on really being approachable, on their level, not you know talking too deep in numbers and not scaring clients. And that way I've got a lot of referrals, and I've grown to something like 400 clients over a 15-year period without any advertising. And I think that's just being approachable, being friendly, assistant, and just that approach. And on top of my 400 clients, I actually assist another accountancy practice in Stockport with about 700 clients that they have. So it's quite a base of clients I deal with.
You're doing something right, aren't you?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And I do come across it quite regularly where clients have felt intimidated by their accountant. It's an annual thing. That it's this fear of getting the records together, going to see them. In some cases, being told off because they're doing X, Y, and Z. It's just not my approach at all.
I mean, we get it in our industry. I've just come off the phone to a guy at dinner time, and he's been through an insolvency a couple of years ago, and he got shafted. This guy got absolutely fucking, excuse me, mind me language, kids might be watching. But typical story, went with a liquidator. He didn't get told everything. He's paid his 6 or 7 grand to liquidate. They've then been round his throat for like another 50,000, and he's still dealing with it now. Totally unconnected company. It's a vape shop, would you believe? The high street he's on, he's just fell flat on its arse. He owes a bounce back loan, a little bit of HMRC. And we've gone through it. He's got a proposal. He says, "Are you sure that's all it is?" I'm like, "Yeah." I says, "There's nothing to see here." He says, "You've made it sound so easy." I said, "Well, there's 2 types of insolvency people. There's the one that will baffle people with bullshit, and there's the other person that will just talk in a manner that people understand. Although you go into the intricacies, like you with accountants, we could get into real minutiae and baffle people, but they don't need to really know that level of detail. Me and you do. What a director needs to know is the basics. What are the costs? Are there any pitfalls to that director personally from pulling the trigger?" And that's how we win a lot of work. They'll speak to 3 insolvency practitioners, and they'll come back to me and they'll go, "Well, you seem a little bit different to the other ones, and I feel I can talk to you a little bit more." Equally, I put certain people off, which is absolutely fine. I'm not their type of person; they're probably not mine. But it is being normal, being easy to relate to is really helpful.
Yeah, that's it. That's my approach. You just got to be approachable with people.
Listen, I'm going to fire a few questions in at you, mate. It's not a test.
No.
Phone's going.
Yeah.
First one I wanted to run by you, mate. You've obviously seen a lot over the years. You've dealt with a load of businesses, big and small. How can small business owners effectively manage their cash flow in the hope they never ever come in the midst of someone like me? What would be your top tips?
Let me think. Obviously, stay close to the accountant, if they can. Be cautious about taking too much money out of the business. I've been there where businesses do well in the early days, and they overdo it, and you've got to try and put something aside, whether it's for VAT, your taxes, and a lot of them get caught after the sort of 12, 18 months, because if you take a limited company, it's nearly 2 years before it pays any corporation tax.
Yeah.
And that's the shock that hits them. And so they've not put any money aside. They took it all as dividends. That's the usual one. Just not really putting money aside. They've just took it too much out along the line. That time.
How do you have like a formula that you say people to set aside? You say set aside the 20%. What if there was a small business owner in front of you today? What would you be advising them to do? They've just set up. They're going great guns at the moment. The cash flow's flowing.
As a rule of thumb, I would say try and put 10% aside for your corporation tax. So if you turn over £1,000, put £100 aside for your corporation tax, and put, I would say, 10% away for your VAT if you're VAT registered. I know that's 20%, but put 10% because you've got input tax. Put 10% away, for those two, and you can't go far wrong if you put that sort of 20% in a pot or another bank account. It's there when you have to pay these bills.
And it's not a big it's not a big challenge, that, is it? 10%. If you know, because that, especially with the VAT isn't ours, is it? It's like
they've got to remember it's not their money. People forget because it comes into the bank account. They've got to remember it's not their money. They need to put it aside because it does belong to the tax man or the VAT man. So rule of thumb is 20%. It will vary with every business, but if you put 20%, I don't think you'd be far go far wrong there.
You mentioned something interesting there, staying close to your accountant, because that doesn't happen with a lot of businesses. Like you say, they literally dread the phone call. Oh God, they want me books and records. They sheepishly come in, leave it with the receptionist, and they book. If that happens, you can't do your job properly, can you? What should people be doing with accountants? How regularly, and what should you be talking to them about?
Right. Well, if you take my client base of 400, probably I would say 5 to 10 of them have actually got a bookkeeper of their own, so they're on top of it. You know, they're doing daily recording of transactions. They know where they are. The rest of them, which is then nearly 100% of my client base, don't have an accountant or don't have a bookkeeper. I think the best, as a rule of thumb, I'd say if the cash is tightening, then that's an indication that they're losing money. You know, and they're heading towards a bad result. That's the time really to speak to your accountant. Don't leave it too long, because it could be a reversible situation. So there might be something that they can remedy if they speak to the accountant a bit earlier.
What I've found as well is the accountant a good accountant, I should say, they're happy to make the time up, aren't they? Because put the time into these clients, because if you can train them a little bit better to do what you want, it's going to make your job easier at the end of the year, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, we have our way of doing it, and we try and education, which show them sort of a model of how to try and put together, rather than coming, once a year with a Tesco bag of receipts all screwed up. We do try and get them to put some sort of, it's a spreadsheet or some sort of records, really. It assists us. It's quicker to do the job, and I think then it gives them a feel for whether they're doing better or worse than they were the year before.
I mean, obviously, the way that me and you have come into PAF, I've assisted some of your
clients,
some clients that sadly they've not made it, for whatever reason, and they've always been, very just the end of the line, isn't it? It's need to liquidate for no fault of their own. Actually, certainly the last two that we worked together on.
Yeah.
But you must have seen some common financial mistakes that the business owners are making. You've already touched on it, ripping the arse out of the company and, taking all the money. What are the other things that you've seen over the years?
Probably 50% of the businesses that I see get in trouble, it's no fault of their own. In fact, I think we've dealt with 5 or 6 this year, ourselves, Chris. Half of them, it's circumstances. One was a serious illness of a key player in the business, loss of a contract, something like that, which you can't really control. You can't foresee it coming. The others, probably 2 or 3 I've seen, are a result of what the government did 3 years ago. I think the assistance they give with COVID was way over the top, my opinion. They sent out that many unvetted loans, bounce back loans. Directors have took the money out, extended the house, gone on holidays, bought a boat or whatever, built a man cave. But they've took that money out, and it's created so many overdrawn directors' loan accounts. I'm talking about probably 8 out of 10 I see are due to bounce back loans that should not have been handed out. And they're now struggling paying these things back. And it's a very, very common problem at the moment.
It is. It's number one. It's like, the typical director will ring up, he's struggled with it. I mean, HMRC for 2 years said, don't bother paying us.
That's right.
A lot of small businesses have gone, right, I hear you. I'm not going to put anything aside for you. I'm just not going to pay you. And when you're that far behind the 8 ball with us, I got pulled on this the other day. Someone went, Chris, what do you mean by being that far behind the 8 ball? I mean, being like saddled with that, behind on payments. And then, adding to that, they took these loans, which have turned out to be a poison chalice. I mean, even the guys that and girls that haven't done the man cave, haven't bought the Rolex, haven't put the extension on the house, what they probably did, because if you were a director, you got absolutely screwed in COVID. You know, the furlough, the furlough was not a lot of money if you was on 12 grand a year salary, which most of us are, because it's the most tax efficient way to get out. So what people have done is, let's say they need 40 grand a year to live. It's not an enormous amount of money. That it's not in bloody Preston, never mind central London or, you know, down south where, you know, everything's more expensive. But what the mistake a lot of them have made is revenues have fell down, profits have fell down. They've still needed to take their money. And instead of actually going, you know what, I'm going to pay myself to salary. Yes, I get taxed at source. They've taken what they class as dividends that aren't dividends. They come and see you at the end of the year and you're like, well, that's going to have to go on an overdrawn loan account.
Yeah.
Wallop with that S455 tax, wallop with personal tax. Yeah. Then, if they're really unlucky, they get a phone call off someone like me and we're going, well, you owe the company 30 grand. How are you going to pay that back? It is a minefield out there.
It is. And I think COVID, it's made the problems a lot worse for businesses. You know, the bounce back loans were issued without any vetting. So businesses that weren't even affected by COVID took them 50 grands, or the bigger ones, the 230s, 250s. And it's a problem that I think we're still a couple of years to go before we get through this. It created a lot of problems. You know, there was a mass abuse of the bounce back loan system.
I mean, interestingly, there, you know, obviously me and you are sort of on the coal face. How do you see the economy? Where do you think we're at right now, June 2024? How do you see it over the next 6 months? And, you know, perhaps further on into 2025, what are your thoughts?
Flatlining. I just don't see any improvement, bar, you know, not 1%, but fractions of a percentage of growth. And I think that's the same with businesses. It's just very, very flat. Some will buck the trend, some will do well, some will dip. But I just don't see across the board seeing any sort of growth in the next 6 months, year, 2 years, to be honest.
It doesn't look like it's going to get back better anytime soon, does it?
It doesn't. No. And there's certain sectors that are proper struggling because of what is happening. I'll name one: hospitality, under a massive amount of pressure. Hospitality companies. They've been hit from 4 directions, really, Chris.
Oh, well, they've just. COVID's a distant memory, isn't it? It's like the cost of everything else that's gone up.
Yeah, well, they were affected probably as bad as anyone during the COVID period. But since we've come out, they've been hit with falling footfall, gas and electric, massive increases, the minimum wage rising to something like £11 an hour, and when a combination of food prices probably doubling on a lot of items. When you put all that together, it's a massive problem for hospitality. I know my client
less money to go out as well, haven't they? You know, it's like all those things have affected the consumer too, haven't they? So they're going out less.
Yes, and when you take them 4 or 5 factors together, it's hammering the hospitality sector. That's what I'm finding of all because I've got a big spread of clients from construction, engineering. I've got, you know, a few hospitalities, and they're the sector that seems to be struggling more than any of them.
What, you know, aside from the black swan events, which we keep having quite regularly, you know, what could a business owner to do today to sort of hedge, if you will, against some type of crisis? What type of things can they be putting in place to go, you know what, if something happens down the line, we've got a little bit of maneuverability. What would you suggest to them?
One, definitely be limited. I mean, I think generally we are talking about limited companies, aren't we? But I'd always recommend being limited. There's no tax benefits, all that's been took away. But it's the unforeseen event, really. And if you are limited, at least you've limited that liability to the company. If you're a partnership or a sole trader, it's going to land on you. and then you're looking at your issues with your house, your mortgage. Far better to be limited. And then if you are a limited company, always have back of your mind that something unforeseen could happen, and try and keep some fat on your back. Some reserves in the business, a plan B. If you're not being paid by customers, you can factor or something. You've got a loan facility, but just somewhere where you can tap into funds if things go wrong.
With regards to credit control, because that just doesn't get discussed enough, really. How important is a thorough and robust credit control process? Have you got any tips and advice you could give us on that?
Always then, if you're going to give credit to customers, vet them customers. You do your credit search, check your 2 or 3 references. That's a good start, rather than just dealing with anyone. I get clients phoning me about a bad debt and kind of check a company out, but it's too late. They've already gone in there and traded with them. So you check them out beforehand, and if it looks doubtful, put them on a pro forma. And then the other advice would be to get on a package like Xero, Sage, QuickBooks or something, where you can monitor your debts. If you're giving credit, you need to be looking at them debts on a weekly or monthly basis, daily basis. And you can't do it if you're not on a package. So you need to, and they're not expensive these days, Chris. You're looking about $250 a year, plus VAT. For a small package, but at least that way you can look at it on a daily basis and say who owes you money. It generates standard letters. You can make your phone calls from that, so you've got some control, I think, if you're on a package. But certainly, if you're giving credit to customers, I'd try to be on an accountancy package, no matter how big you are.
Yeah, and we use Xero. It's I can use it. I can click on it, and I can, it's simple to use. And I am not a technical person. I'm not an accountancy person. What type of reports, as a minimum, do you think people should have at the fingertips, and how regularly do you think they should be checking them?
Almost daily or weekly. To me, it's the debtors report. You can run a simple one or a detailed one, but you can run that daily on Xero or any package you're on, and they need to be looking at that closely. I've got clients, I've got lorry drivers that's using Xero, ground workers. You don't need that accountancy ability, really. Sage is a bit different. It's an accountant's package.
I've used that before. Yeah, that was way above me.
Yeah, I tend to hold back now. I do everything on Sage, or most things on Sage, and I'll put it with a client if they've got a bookkeeping experience or they're used to Sage, but it's not easy to use. But if you're on the QuickBooks or the Xero, they're very, very easy to use. You've got your bank feeds, so that it's feeding the information in live. So if a customer pays you, or you pay a client, a supplier, it's straight into that package, instantaneous. So you got that live information. The good part, the technology has moved on a lot from the days when you used to have to wait for your bank statements to come in. It's all live information. So literally, you could look at that 10 times. Look at your debtors 10 times a day. Somebody pays you in the mid-afternoon. It should be in your accountancy package, and just monitor you. So you can get a summary report of your debtors or a detailed one. And, with
regards to, and sort of one of my final questions here, John, is obviously nobody I know likes to pay tax. Okay, yeah. We've got to pay it. It's a necessary evil. Are there any tax efficient, strategies to reduce that tax liability? If you're a limited company, is there anything you can throw out there for us? Any black magic?
Really, Chris? If somebody, like you say, thinks one or there's one going around, they tend to get shut down by the revenue. You've probably heard about the footballers and the...
we dealt with a few of them, yeah. We dealt with a few of them, yeah.
They've obviously been talking in the bath after a match or whatever and said, my accountant suggested this, whether it's offshore, Isle of Man or something. But invariably, they get shut down by the revenue. And you do hear a lot... You get a couple of years where an accountant or a footballer, somebody has been caught by the tax man for using a scheme that's... that's, I would say, evasion, avoidance. I'm never sure which one it is, but it's, you know, it's been closed down that route. It's not a genuine route of avoiding tax. Yeah,
and that's it. The reason why I throw that in is obviously you've been doing this a long, long time. If there was a way, you would be aware of it. The fact is you've got to. The rules are there for everybody, aren't they? We've just got to fall in line and pay what's due. Hopefully, save. I want to sort of touch on this. Obviously, a lot of people watching these videos, they're struggling with HMRC. They're sort of past that point of preparation. And it's like they may have outstanding corporation tax, they may have outstanding VAT, may have, or a combination of them both. Have you seen a difference in the tone from the revenue the last 6 months? Have you had much experience dealing with them recently, restructuring time to pay arrangements, that type of thing?
Yeah, not me personally. One time they used to, you know, they'd always phone up and ask them, see if I could personally do a deal with them for them. But I have a few clients that I've phoned them recently. Found them okay, to be honest. You know, no real problem. Because the last thing the revenue want to do is put you out of business. So they're quite amicable. And they're usually, as long as you can keep up to date with your current, whether it's VAT or PAY or whatever, they're quite amicable to you clearing the arrears. They won't go over silly periods. If you suggest 60 months or something, they won't. But certainly bringing it up to date over a 12-month period, I find that, you know, no problem at all.
And that's in it. People are worried about the revenue. Like they're the same people that are worried about the accountant. You know, these people at the end of the day, they're just doing the job, aren't they? I've, you know, the amount of people that will be surprised by just the biggest problem with the revenue is the hour and a half you need to wait to speak to somebody who can make a decision. And maybe not an hour and a half, but you know,
it's always an hour though.
It is an hour, isn't it? Yeah, you've got to be on the front foot. And when, again, bringing up a point from earlier, when you're a limited company, limited liability, I mean, I've had it before where the revenue have made a decision and said, no, we're not accepting a time to pay arrangement. Well, then they end up in liquidation, and in many smaller liquidations, the revenue don't get anything back anyway. So if you're a director watching this, you're in a stronger position than you think. The key is don't bury your head in the sand. You know, speak to them.
Yeah, it's no use talking to the revenue and making an arrangement to pay if there's absolutely no chance of you getting out of the woods. So you've got to be realistic when you phone them, because they'll want you to keep up to date with current stuff. It's no use paying off the arrears and then not paying the current stuff. You know, they'll watch it, and you've got to be realistic and sit down. Can I get out of this? You know, quantify the amount you owe to the revenue and see if, you know, if it's 10, 20 grand or whatever, can you pay that over a 12-month period? Is it realistic on top of keeping up to date with your current commitments? But I've no problem with the, you know, the conversation I've had with them have been quite amicable, because they don't want to put you out of business.
No,
you know, and you just got to be realistic. You're looking at probably 12 months. You won't get really much beyond that. But if you're realistic and think you can bring it in line in that period, then, well, we're talking to them. I'm spending an hour on the phone.
Brilliant. John, listen, I'm going to wrap up now. I really, really appreciate you coming on and sharing some information. I know you're not obviously you're very, very busy, but is there anywhere that people can get in touch with you if they do want to reach out after this podcast, or are the shutters down on new clients at the moment?
Yes, get in touch with you. I don't have a website because, again, like I was saying, I've grown my business through referrals, really. So I've never advertised. So I've never found the need for a website. But if anyone wants to contact me directly, I can give my number as 0770 986 4880. Give me a call.
Brilliant. And if anyone speaks to me, obviously I can put you in touch with John. Yeah. John, thank you for your time today, mate. I really appreciate it. You're a top man, and have a fabulous weekend, mate. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chris.